Okay, this is the pre-show. I'm Jay Skinner, and you're getting on board to the Buyers and Sellers Show. I'm so glad you came today. This is give everybody a chance to get on. We start every Friday morning at 10:35 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. How about the Blue City? Some people say Memphis. I say Chicago. Everybody's getting on. You guys know we're going to have Tim Ahlenius from AmericanEagle.com with us, talking about the 6 types of working genius. And that's the book by Patrick Lencioni. The cool thing is you're going to get answers that you can go home with and go back to work with today that are going to answer questions about why did that group project not work out? Or how can I structure it to know that it will? And do you know there's an analytical approach to that that was just developed in the last couple of years by Patrick Lencioni? It's going to be awesome. I see we got people coming on right now. How exciting is this? I'm so glad to have you here. I'm Jay Skinner. This is the Buyers and Sellers Show. Good morning, everyone. Good to see you. Stay right there. Oh, man, am I so glad everybody's come on board. Like I said, you're on the Buyers and Sellers Show, and it wouldn't be right if I didn't say, and we're live. I'm so excited about this. This is probably one of the biggest shows I've ever done in the last 2 full years, and this is the 2-year mark of us doing shows here at the Buyers and Sellers Shows, over 100 different broadcasts. And I'm proud to have somebody here that's going to be awesome. Now, many of you have already read the pre-stuff about what we're going to do, and that's why we've got a good crowd on board. So what I want to talk to you about is this guy that we're going to have on is Tim Ahlenius. And many of you have probably seen him like on TV. And I want this to be the introduction because you've probably seen this commercial on TV just like I have. And this is Tim Ahlenius, who's back in the green room eating the fruit, I'm sure, right now. Hang on. Meet Tim.
At AmericanEagle.com, businesses come to us with complex website and digital needs. Regardless of industry, an online presence can have a massive impact on your business's success. When a client comes to us with a complicated issue, it's a big deal to them. From reducing technical debt to being found online or navigating an ambitious website project, what matters most to them is finding a digital partner who gets it and owns it. At AmericanEagle.com, these are issues we solve for all the time. I'm Tim Ahlenius, Vice President of Digital Strategy at AmericanEagle.com. Whether it's building a complex website, integrating multiple systems, or improving digital marketing, our experts harness decades of experience to produce results that matter not only to our customers, but to our customers' customers. If your business is ready to transform its online presence, you need AmericanEagle.com. Let us put our proven track record to work for you. And the team at AmericanEagle.com is here for you.
And welcome to the Buyers and Sellers Show. Everyone, meet Mr. Tim Ahlenius.
Hey, Jay, it's great to be on. Hi, everyone.
Oh, man, it's so good to see you. Thank you for coming. So, Tim, where are you right now? What do we just talk about, and what are we seeing behind you?
Yeah, that's 294, that wonderful highway in Chicago area. I'm at our headquarters office just outside of O'Hare in Des Plaines, Illinois. Very excited to be here on the show today, live with you, Jay. I've been looking forward to this since we last met and talked about doing it. So I'm excited to talk about the 6 types of working genius.
Exactly. And while we're here, I wanted to notice that people are jumping on, saying hi. Let's see who's come on board already here. Let's see. Terry Stemple. Hey, Terry. Good. Glad you're here. Yeah, you like Memphis, Jay. Definitely Memphis. Okay. Terry is a fantastic rotational molding company, part of Integrity Molding, and a guy that I work with. And so glad you came by, Terry. A lot of people are excited about what's going on here. They want to say hello there. Glad you're here. Don't want to miss anybody. There you go. And what do we got? Who else is here? There's Scott Lemke. Hey,
Scott,
we know
yep. I know Scott.
You know Scott. How about
Not that frozen yet here in Chicago, Scott.
That's good. Scott works with you at AmericanEagle.com.
Yeah.
And he's on the team. I'm a client. I'm representing him. I work closely with American Eagle, and Scott's on the development team for our company here. And let's see what else we got. Sharon Hoffmeister. Good morning. Glad you're here. By the way, Sharon is my niece, and she has gone live every single day for over 1,000 different times for her business. She's a big believer in going live. So Sharon, be sure and let us know how many times today is going to be for your consecutive lives. Okay, going into this, Patrick Lencioni wrote The 6 Types of Working Genius, and tell us about it. And Sharon just told me 1,206. Way to go, Sharon.
Right. Good job, Sharon. Yeah, so 6 Types of Working Genius.
Yes.
Great book. Just came out. I actually was just downtown at our Chicago office. I took the Metro in and saw the book actually at the Hudson newsstand. I was like, wait a minute, I know that book cover. So it's great to see that it's out there. Lots of people are benefiting from it. Patrick Lencioni, for those of you who may not know, he has been one of my favorite authors in my career because of the way that he writes business fables. So he likes to start each book with more of a business fable to then teach the concept of what he's doing. And this has been absolutely one of the best ones that I have read from him. He has several others as well. Definitely recommend you check them out. They have all impacted my career. I pass them out like candy almost. Maybe it's a new Halloween thing I should do. But overall, it has really been an incredible experience going through the 6 types of working genius process. So it started for me over 2 years ago. Yeah. And so we'll put the 6 types up here and I'll get my camera angled just right. But there are 6 types of working genius overall that we have. And it makes a fun acronym of widget, right? You can't have a business book without some sort of acronym. And what these 6 types are the way that we work. We have at least 2 working geniuses. We have 2 working competencies, and we have 2 working frustrations. It's kind of what their team boiled it down to. And I'll just start from the beginning and kind of talk through. But wonder, people who have the genius of wonder, they see the untapped potential or possibilities and identify the need for improvement or change. They're the deep thinkers. They are the ones who ask the why questions and really ponder things. They're the people who, on the podcast just today, that they put out, the Working Genius podcast, one of the people on it, Bo, talked about being with a friend at an art museum and how the friend who has a genius of wonder can stare at a painting much longer than he could because that's not a genius for him. And there's people like that who are just more contemplative and they're deep thinkers. So those are the people with wonder, very important aspect of the different genius types. Next, I is invention. We'll get to me a little bit later, but I'm an ID. So I start to identify with 2 letters as you move forward and you do the assessment. So invention are people who generate novel or innovative ideas or solutions and really have fun coming up with things. I like to call them a lot of times the whiteboarders. I love a whiteboard session. Give me a whiteboard session. I'll come up with ideas all day long. And so that's the people who have a genius of invention. Discernment is people who see patterns and trends. They use intuition. I like to call it a little bit more the people who kind of naturally have a good gut check on things, but they can really discern all the different ideas that come up in an invention session and from a person with the genius of invention, say, you know what, that is the right idea to move forward with. And they refine those ideas and solutions and help move them into the next stage of a project process or accomplishing something. Galvanizing, G. These are the people, the rah-rah people, right? They rally people around, get people on board, and they instigate energy and momentum around the plan or solution that's been decided upon as you go through these stages. So that's, I call them the rah-rah people, right? They're the energy providers. E is for enablement, a very important aspect of working genius, where people anticipate needs and support implementation of the idea or solution. So these, I like to think about people who naturally volunteer to help out, or are constantly the ones raising their hands. Oh yeah, I can help with that. That's where I think of people who have the genius of enablement. They see that need and they help provide where they can. And then lastly, tenacity. I'm kind of happy it's at the end, because this is one of my working frustrations. And after I took this assessment, it explains so much about my life and how things have been frustrating at times for me. But people with tenacity as a genius, again, not me, are people who drive projects and tasks to completion. They're finishers. They love to-do lists. They wake up in the morning and think about, I can't wait to check 15 things off my to-do list. That is not me at all. I am an invention person, so I recreate that to-do list every time I try and write it. But overall, those are the 6 types. There's a lot to learn about them. Definitely pick up the book if you're interested. You can talk to Jay. He's been through, we met through a course that I did on it. And you can also go to workinggenius.com and find out more about the assessment. Now, what I love is this assessment, very affordable, and you get an incredible output from it. Jay, I think you actually have your assessment.
Now, this is an example of when I was at the AmericanEagle.com client forum. This is where we got together back in October, and just lit me up, because all of a sudden we found a secret to team and project work. It's like, oh my gosh. And we're going to talk about those dynamics here in a minute, but I filled out the 42 questions, took all of about 10 minutes. And then back came this paper that explained who I was, about me, and that sort of thing. And people have done personality assessments for years. And the thing is about this is a new work. This new widget working genius concept is probably, to me, the first new thing in behavioral dynamics in decades.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm close to guys that do stuff like this and have done, and pioneers in the industry. But this work was like a revelation that God gave Patrick Lencioni in the middle of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh my gosh, this is why I'm being so galvanizing. Yeah. When they looked at it, I'm an idea guy and I'm a galvanizing. I'm the IG guy. And this explains how that works. And then I guess yours is here. We can look at yours, can't we?
Yeah, let's look. We can take a look at mine. I mentioned it, but yeah, let's
go over there and see what yours look like. Okay, there we go. Do like that. And assessment, Tim. There we go.
Perfect. All right. So yeah. So as I mentioned, I am an ID, right? So
you and I match on invention.
We match on invention. Yeah. Yes. We can get very creative together, Jay.
Yes.
And however, your energy, your galvanizing is why you're probably better at producing and doing a live show than I ever would be. So it's a competency for me. So yeah. So when you take the assessment, it breaks it down in, it goes to 2 working geniuses, 2 working competencies, and 2 working frustrations. And the best way that Patrick explained it, Pat Lencioni, is that the geniuses are what you could do forever, right? Long periods of time, you don't tire doing them. That's why I love the job that I do and the position that I'm in. Your competencies are things that you can do for a little while and they don't drain you of energy, but it's not something that you are as excited to always be doing. And then something that you also, are frustrated with. It's kind of right in that middle there. And then lastly, you've got the frustrations. So if we go back to mine, Jay, if you want to put mine back up for a second.
Yep.
Yeah. So the frustrations are the ones that drain you of energy. You do them too long. They're tough for you to focus on. Like if I have to really get something done on time, I'm a chronic procrastinator because tenacity is a frustration for me. So my life is now explained. I can tell my wife, I never finish any project at the house because of this. Yes. But with that, I have to just kind of put blinders on and just go in and focus. Then I can actually get something accomplished in the time frame that I have to. It's much harder for me. I have colleagues that I work with who have tenacity as a genius, and it's great when we pair together, because that's what this whole model is about, is identifying the different people that you work with and how to pair correctly in the different aspects of a project. And we'll get to that in a little bit, but the fun thing that Patrick and the Working Genius team put together is they put out a little bit more of these fun just descriptions of each of these combinations that happen. So that's what was showing on the screen. It's an exciting time. And, I highly encourage you to go through the process. I've done almost every behavioral assessment or, personality thing that's out there, the Enneagram, Myers-Briggs. And as Jay mentioned, though, this is probably one of the most easily adopted ones I've ever had, especially when I started bringing it internally at our company, but also personally. I had my wife take the assessment. And we talk about this now when we talk about the things we have to accomplish at home. And we've got 4 young boys, so it's kind of crazy. Neither one of us have tenacity as a genius. She at least has it as a competency. But that helps us really say, okay, you need time to focus on this, then I'm going to give you that time. And that's how we move our lives forward, working together, understanding where we're going to best support each other.
So the different personality assessments, you talked about them, there's DISC and Myers-Briggs and all those different ones. And sometimes some of them look like rehashes of the old thing.
Yeah.
The beauty of this is that it's different and it's special. And it's like, oh my gosh. And the other part is that when you're trying to get a job done with people, the 4 quadrants didn't exactly work to explain why the project wasn't getting done, but this does.
Mm-hmm.
And once someone has been identified as being in these categories and having them as strengths or competencies or frustrations, then now if everyone knows where they are, rather than being critical of that individual, they can say, okay, I get it. I know why you're pushing me to the end here, because you got tenacity and I'm over here still trying to reinvent what we're doing because I think there's a cooler way.
Yep, exactly.
And then all of a sudden they can understand, and my wife has tenacity. And so when we're doing projects, it wasn't until this project we're doing right now, which is the first big project since I learned about this, that I was able to understand why she knows she's a driver, but tenacity helped me understand it even better. That while I'm sitting there saying, oh, this is cool, we'll do it like this, take a picture, let's document how I did this. It's like, and well, maybe we can do it better like that. Oh, well, but she's wanting to get it done.
Yeah.
Now I get it. You've experienced the same thing now, I guess?
Oh, absolutely. And that's where, if you are working in your genius, right, you will be excited and continuing forward, but there's also different aspects to when geniuses are needed. And that really is a key thing to learn about when you're working as a team. Is we have these different, types of genius, the 6, and they go through a different aspect of when you map out with your team. You need a balanced team. And Jay just pulled up here and the team map that you can put together. So after you have a team take this, you can map out where all your geniuses and frustrations are. Now, the reason competency isn't on here is because competency isn't really where you need to have a coverage. It's when you have genius and frustration. And as an example here, right, as we look at this and widget is going, left, right, and down, we have one person on this team that's got a wonder of genius. A genius of wonder. And with that, it's going to be someone who is going to ask that deep question, ponder. You need someone in each role on a team because there's different stages that they go through.
Right up there?
Yep, right up there. Yep. And then right below that, I'm going to skip invention for right now. We've got discernment, and discernment with no one in that role right now is a gap. And that's a problem because, again, that discernment was that person who is going forward and they see any pattern and trend and use intuition to refine the idea or solution that you would move forward with. So in a team, you've got a lot of ideas from your people with invention. They kind of start those from the people who have wonder. But if you have no one to discern which idea is the right one to move forward with, what's going to happen is that you're going to maybe not have a consensus on it. You're not going to have someone who really understands the direction to head.
Time out.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of people watching right now that are looking at this saying, okay, what exactly am I looking at?
Yeah.
And the good news is everyone can go back and rewatch this and then get the book, and it'll all really make a lot of sense. But imagine for a minute that you have a project that you're working on, like the one I'm working on with AmericanEagle.com, which when you're putting together a digital marketing program for a company, which is what I'm doing for my packaging systems and personalized packaging systems, I've got lots of people involved. Well, in order for it to go successfully, we need people from every group. And when you think about projects where you have multiple people, look at these different geniuses and think about where there's holes. And where there's holes, that means that's probably why or where the project is going sideways, not making progress, or stopping altogether. Is that a good assessment?
Great assessment.
Okay.
And with that too is when you start to have people with too many people with the same genius, you might have too many people trying to help move things forward when you need to delegate it off to one or two of them, depending on the project, depending on the need. But absolutely, where there's a hole, you need to find someone with that. And it might be someone from a different team. It might be someone that you have to hire into that role. And it might be something that, maybe it's just a competency and, in that team and for the size of project, you might say, hey, you know what, we're not going to fill that fully, but at least we know that we're going to pull this person in because of their competency to look at it. But the biggest ones are the genius gaps, the frustration gaps. If you have no one with that frustration, great. But here's the thing. If I have, in this case, right, I've got Yasmin, who is both a genius of wonder and a genius of invention. And by the way, with this whole assessment model, you can only have two working geniuses. And the reason for that is you can't have all six and be productive. You can't have all six and be working at your max energy and peak and excitement level. So that's really where the model broke it down into only two of each. Some people disagree with those, and there's a way that you can refine it. But at the end of the day, when I started looking backwards after taking the assessment at my career and even just like college and in life, it really made sense that tenacity is a frustration for me. It's always been a problem. I just never had a way to frame it and explain it. So when I was a project manager, it was a frustrating experience because I had to be tenacity. Well, I'd get to the end of a project, I'd be bored. The beginning of a project was exciting, but I get bored at the end of it. So I started reinventing new ideas during the project instead of launching it. So that became a problem, and that's what helped, move towards the strategy drive that I do today. But overall, this team map is so beneficial when you start working both in a project setting, but even within a department and understanding the roles that different people play inside of a company. So whether you're a small company or a large company, this can really be used and applied at both levels.
And everybody, if you go to workinggenius.com, all the stuff I'm showing you right here is available to you. The Lencioni group, that's called the Table Group, is so kind that you can buy a book, you can get this stuff. If you want to get help, you can call people like me and Tim, and they have people on their staff if you need help. But this is very do-it-yourself too, which is so nice. We got some comments here. Let's see who's on board. Greg Sneed just came on board and he says, hi. Hey, Greg. He says he wants to know, how would the discernment genius get found? Is there a strategy to find people with that attribute? Oh, yeah. So you're looking for someone with the genius of discernment. And how do you find people like that when you know you're missing that? That's a good question.
Yeah, that's a great question, Greg. So overall, the assessment, best way to see right now in the hiring process, and this is one that came up, there is an option to get certified under the Working Genius model and take that. I went through that 2-day course. Jay, I think you're also looking at it as well, potentially, but it really digs deep into how you utilize it and how you apply it. So if you're interested, I definitely would recommend you check that out. I can talk to you more about it as well. In that, we talked about the fact that you can't really use an assessment pre-hire typically. But as part of an onboarding process, once someone is in, you can use that to help identify the best placements that they would go. Now, the other thing too is when you're doing a discussion with someone and having that conversation, you can start to ask certain questions that start to get you a little bit more towards the way that they might be leaning for a genius. And you can talk about, what's some of the most exciting work that you've done? What aspects of doing that were your favorites? And you start to ask certain questions to see if they come in and they, did they implement any inadequate or ineffective ideas or solutions, and how'd that make them feel? An aspect of discernment is, do they sometimes overuse it by ignoring other people's judgment? That's a concern that also might be there. People in discernment, and they might have it, but they might be overusing it, as if the common paralysis by analysis, right? They're stuck trying to decide which between these two is going to be the best. There's an aspect where you say, well, what's your gut tell you? Or which one were you leaning towards first? And a lot of times, if they have that intuition, they're going to express that. So a couple different ways, asking certain questions, having that conversation with them really lets them start to reveal, right? Ask the questions through each one of those 6, right? Do you enjoy a to-do list? No, I don't.
Yes.
But overall, that's where you can start to try and find people with specific ones. And then if you can, I recommend having an assessment done as part of your onboarding, because that's going to set it up right away to understand where they fall.
Yeah. And so that brings up a question to me. You mentioned it earlier. Are there HR things that don't allow you to give assessments now as part of the hiring process? Because I have hired over the years and been given assessments pre-hire as part of the interview process. Is that not allowed?
So I'm not an HR or legal representative, so I can't say what is and isn't. And I think it also varies by state as well.
In Indiana, they do it.
So I definitely something to talk about within your legal general counsel team and HR team. For me, I also think that sometimes it puts people off potentially if you have them do assessments right away, because they might feel an assessment's not an accurate representation of who they are. Mm-hmm. Or the other thing that I have concerns with when you do an assessment in a hiring process is, just like any other interview, most people are really on track for what an interview should say versus who they might naturally be, because they really are looking to make that first impression. And so you want to make sure that you're not just having that be a first impression, or that they're trying to answer it in a specific way and not answering, as accurately as they would if they didn't have that interview mindset already in place.
I understand. And let's see if we got some other people here. Let's see. Mark Benner has come by and says, it appears to me Ross needs a tune-up. So I don't know if that was for us, but I know Mark Benner, so glad you're here, Mark. I don't know. Does that make sense? Does that question make sense?
If you go back to the team map, Jay.
Okay, good. We'll go back to the map. See, you got it. Mark, you are being very intuitive here. Let's go back to that brand map, and you will show me what I mean, because I didn't see that.
So Ross here, he has a frustration of wonder and of discernment. He has a genius of galvanizing and tenacity. So, depending on Ross's role here is going to be, if he's in the wrong, if he's asked to do anything in what is a little bit more of the beginning ideation stages of a project, where this is kind of a good segue for us as well, because that's coming up next, is that he may not be the best person, because those are all frustrations for him. So if you put Ross in charge of identifying what are some new ideas that we have to come up with, and why are we answering certain things, what questions should we be answering, and trying to discern the direction to go, he's probably not going to perform well. Now, when we look at his geniuses, right, galvanizing that rah-rah person, right, getting that energy to start a project, get onboarded, that's where we should make sure that Ross is at that critical juncture of a project start or a new initiative, whatever it might be. And then, moving him forward into the tenacity is making sure that not only does he start it, but he's helping organize it to get that done and having that to-do list to track it. So it's, yes, a tune-up in a sense of which projects and where is he being utilized and what skills are being asked of him to use.
Aha. And so, Mark, thank you for your insight there. And let's see what Gregory says is you develop questions to ask related to what you need and not require someone to take a structured assessment. There you go.
Yep. So you can
That's how you
start
figure
that
it out.
process and then you can still do the assessment later. But yeah, if you're at the very beginning of looking to just have the conversation with someone, I did this over the holidays with several family members. I didn't go and ask them to take the assessment. I just kind of wanted to ask questions and see where they fell. So
Yep.
you can
Once
have
you
fun
learn
at
and
family
understand,
gatherings.
once you learn and understand this, it's fairly easy to size up someone and understand where they fit. But then the assessment will help get even more specific and give you
Yeah.
more information. So then, as we're moving forward into this, we show that in the project group, and this is something I want everyone to understand, at least those of you that think like I do, you need to have all those spots filled somehow with people that have these as strengths, or at least working competencies and the ability to work within each one. If you got one of each inside of a group, or maybe you only have 3 people, well, hopefully you've got all those areas filled between their working geniuses and their working and their competencies. Then you have greater potential for success in the project. Is that a good assessment?
Yeah, and let's bring up that next graphic then, because
Okay.
the 3 stages of work really kind of break these 6 out into what I was just talking about with Ross as that example. So overall, there's 3 stages of work for the different activities to make sure that work gets done effectively, basically. And so you've got ideation for the first 2, wonder and invention. Very true. You're ideating. You have the person who kind of asks the first question, then the people with invention, Jay and I, who are going to say, hey, let's whiteboard that and put some ideas on the board to become potential solutions. So that's the ideation stage. Every project starts with ideation, whether it's a very fast ideation stage and we know that this is the problem and here's 2-3 solutions right off the bat. A lot of situations in life are fast and quick like that. New creative things might take a little bit longer. So you have ideation, then you move into activation. So you've got the ideas. Now you have the people with discernment who come in and refine those ideas, and they kind of look and say, okay, well, I think this solution out of the 3 is going to give us the best impact, or ROI or customer satisfaction, whatever it might be that you're striving for. They're going to come through and really refine that and kind of give that, yep, this is the direction to head. Then the people with galvanizing are activating that project team, right? They're coming in, they bring that energy, they get the team, the rah-rah, right? I'm going to keep saying that because it's so much fun to say.
I'm a rah-rah guy.
Yeah.
I'm a rah-rah. Here, watch this.
There you go. I need buttons like Jay for whenever I have to say it now, but at least on today's show, he can do that for me. With regards to that, right, they get that project team organized, started, and the energy driving behind it. That's activation. You're activating that entire aspect of it. And it's middle stage. And often this activation stage out of any project is the most overlooked stage. They move right from idea to implementation. And when you do that, right, and I got to go smaller hands here because of my camera, but overall, that is the one that you want to make sure isn't skipped. You want to take the time to discern and make sure that's the correct direction, refine it. It's worth an extra bit of time to do that. And then lastly, you've got implementation. And so implementation are your E and T, right? You got energy in the project direction and everything from activation stage. These are the people who are going through, and I called the enablement people more the people who raise their hand and volunteer for things, right? They're the doers. They're going to come in and do that. And then the tenacity people, I equate those in my profession to project managers, right? They're going to come in and they're going to make sure that things are organized and that they're getting that to do done and that they're moving things forward. So overall, we don't want to skip stages, because when you skip stages, you skip people. And we all know what it feels like to be skipped, right? And so we don't want that, because that also impacts morale within a team. That impacts morale with a client-vendor relationship. And so we want to make sure that we don't lose productivity by skipping stages. So there's an importance to highlight in each of these stages for these geniuses as you move throughout a project and the stages of work as identified here.
Now we got Greg. I really appreciate you jumping in here. He said, so to get a task done, you need ET.
Greg, so that's a great I'm glad you mentioned this,
ET.
because a lot of people think that you have to have the genius to get
Hold on a
something
second.
done.
That deserves one of these.
So, yeah. We need to make sure that people understand that just because you have an identified working genius doesn't mean you don't do the other types of genius at some point in your day, at some point in your career. You are doing those other geniuses no matter what. I still have to get a task done even if I'm an ID. So while tenacity is a frustration for me, that's something that I want to make sure is not, I have to focus on it. So I have to take more time to do it. Partnering with others who have that, I have people who will help keep me in check, right? And I work with certain people in a way that I'm ideating, but they still make sure that for the tenacity things that I have to get done, I'm getting those accomplished. And so it's not that you have to have ET to get a task done. It's that people who have ET are more likely to get that done without any other need for driving and getting energy from someone else, getting check-in from someone else. They're naturally going to be doing it and getting that done. So,
and if you don't have some ET around, it might not get done, and you're going to have to phone home.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Bring it back, Jay.
Yeah, there you go. And so this is an area here that I know that you think is very important and you want to talk about.
Yes.
Disruptive and responsive.
Responsive. Yep. So the other breakdown that you have here is there's 3 of the geniuses: wonder, discernment, and enablement, that are responsive types of geniuses. And those are going to be people, are responding to things versus disrupting. So wonder, people with wonder, they respond to the environment, observing the organization, the problem, the industry, the world around them to generate those questions. They don't necessarily set out to change the world around them. They simply kind of take it in and kind of let their observations unfold. These are the people in meetings that just kind of don't speak up immediately. They're not disruptive like that. They're sitting there just taking it all in. They're soaking it in. They're going to think about it, and then eventually they're going to talk through it. Now, discernment, those are the people who respond to the ideas of inventors, right? So they provide feedback, advice, counsel. They're a big part of the innovation process, but they're not the ones provoking the process. Beyond innovation, they often respond to whatever is put in front of them, right? So if a project team comes to them with, hey, here's this road bump that we have in front of us, they can respond to that. They're taking that as an input, and they're responding as kind of a guide or a providing advice and counsel overall. Enablement, those are the people who, right, they're responding to the stated requests of others, typically someone from the G, right, in galvanizing, and they're ready to provide whatever's needed and are good at, surmising or decide, what's desired, and then they begin to provide for it, even maybe before it's been completely specified or requested. I think about certain people who just naturally seem to understand what's needed before it's fully stated that it's needed. That's how they're responding overall. But they're not necessarily initiating that support until they see that it's needed. So it's not that they're forecasting as much. It's just that they understand, oh, they started saying this direction is what we would have had. This is what we're going to do. Oh, well, I can fill in here. I can support this. I think about a lot of the volunteers at my church and how different aspects of that volunteerism comes into play of they just naturally know this is what needs to happen next. So that's responsive. They're responding usually to inputs coming from the IGTs. These are then the disruptive, right? So people with invention see a problem, they come up with a solution, and usually I like to say they like to defy the status quo. I always look for a unique differentiator within it. They relish the opportunity to create useful havoc. Okay, I like using that word together. Useful havoc, useful chaos, right? And so they add value to a situation by coming up with, out of the box thinking overall. So they again, but they're seeing a problem that usually someone with wonder is kind of posed. So an person with the working genius of invention, that isn't necessarily coming up with the original problem. They're taking a problem, coming up with solutions and ideas for it. Mm-hmm. Galvanizing, these are clearly disruptive. They initiate change because they are the rah-rah.
What? Me disruptive? Can you imagine? Yeah. Oh, man. It's like the comments will light up here before you know it now.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, yeah, disruptive and Jay. I'm the guy that walks right into the fire. And at the same time, I get an idea, and I think it's great because I don't hear if I don't have anybody with discernment around, and then I start going for it. That's the discernment I like, because it's like, let me bounce this great idea off of you and see if it could have legs. And so I need to find a discerner.
Yeah.
Now, I laughed about you because you are an idea guy and a discerner, so you can come up with the idea and then tell everybody it's great and they'll believe you.
It's a great role to be in, Jay. Let me tell you. Oh yeah, which idea is great? Yeah. Honestly, though, the discerner in me, I'll throw out my ideas and I go, all right, here's all the ideas I have. I'll hear other ideas and go, yep, I don't like any of mine now. Let's go with that one. Yeah. And it's where you have to make sure that you're looking at it holistically as well, overall.
Absolutely.
The last
T on disruptors.
Yeah, I was going to say the T on disruptors, they identify the obstacles and push through them. So they are determined to complete a project regardless of what stands in the way. And ding, 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 not me. That is not me, because that's a frustration. I don't want to push through because I'm bored at that point and I want to come up with a new idea to add to the project. So that's where you kind of get into a little bit of trouble when you have someone in the wrong role, is that you need it completed, but if you don't have someone with tenacity there to do it, and you're asking someone who has it as a frustration, a lot of times that's where you start to see some of that just slippage in timelines and everything else that you are going through. So the T's, they're going to bring about whatever change is necessary to achieve success, whether or not it's going to disrupt the whole process. So,
well, I can tell you, my project manager, Megan, is tenacity. And I am so glad to have her, because I know that she's going to pull it all together, because I have other people, including myself, that can be looking at things going, and we're 2/3 of the way towards the end, and all of a sudden, I got an idea. It's like, no. Let's get something finished, and then we can go back and make improvements. And you need someone with tenacity to help make that happen. Fortunately, it's a working competency for me, so I at least understand it and can make it happen if I need to. But
yeah,
do you people that are watching right now understand how beautiful this is, that now you can break down the different roles of individuals and how they think? And it's not good or bad. It's not like Evil Joe is over there throwing us off. It's Evil Joe is not really evil. He's just doing his gift. And understanding how everybody fits. Let's take a break. See, we got some additional comments here. And Greg says tenacity will push through objects and people in the way. Yeah, that's the truth. And you got to have that to get her done. As we're going here, there's another thing where you call it the altitude of geniuses. Yep. What's that about?
Yeah, so this is really great, and we've got a graphic for it as well. But the altitude of geniuses is a way that they kind of just put a model together to talk about moving through each of those different geniuses. And we talked about the three stages of work. Well, with each of that, you're really bringing that altitude down from that wanderer who's up in the clouds, right? 30,000 foot view. They're thinking those questions. They're not anywhere near the actual end implementation of that solution overall. And so every genius is operating at these different altitudes, and they kind of put numbers together around them. And so there's times at work, during meetings, in the midst of projects, that we might skip from one elevation to another. And we got to think about this as the true way that it is if you're flying in an airplane. That's turbulence. And when you think about it as turbulence, and you want to make sure that you're not causing a problem in a project, make sure that if there's something that comes up, then someone has a roadblock. Go through these stages again, go through these different altitudes and say, okay, well, what's the problem? Someone with wonder should be kind of evaluating it. Have someone come up with a new idea for, invention and solving for that. Have the discerner come in and refine that and really give that guidance. But if we take a project and we go from here's our, wanderer's problem over here to immediately implement it with a tenacity person, we've skipped all those stages. That's going to be a big bump overall that we're experiencing in turbulence. And that's what causes a lot of project frustrations, honestly, is when people skip these aspects. Just like when you skip stages of other steps, right? Have you ever tried to make popcorn by putting the kernels into a bowl and pouring your salt and butter on? No, you've got to heat it first. So you got to make sure that we're going through these same stages. Now, again, as I mentioned before, doesn't mean that you are sitting forever and saying, okay, well, it's going to take a little bit to go through each one. Sometimes it's going to be fast. Sometimes it's going to be slow. It all depends on what the situation is, but make sure that you're at least considering it from all the geniuses' perspective so that you don't skip a step again, right? And you have a turbulent effect that causes disruption within a team, right? Where all of a sudden now you went down a path because you skipped certain things and it's rocky and it's shaky. Let's come back and say, hey, let's make that smooth descent down. We're going to get to ground level and we might have to go back up at another point in the project and come back down. But when we do that, it is a way to make sure that it's happening. Meetings in projects, it's one way that we make sure that we're not skipping stages that are going to cause problems overall for the entire team.
Man. And let's see, we got, yeah, Congress could really use this, huh? Yeah, you bet. I'm glad you like it, Greg. I really appreciate your insight. Greg's been a guest on our show as well, and he offers a tremendous amount of insight to us here. So, as we're looking at this, I want you to know that if you want to get in touch with and work with Tim, here's his email address. And if you want to learn more and take an assessment, you can go to workinggenius.com. And of course, people know they can get in touch with me at pop mine up here real quick too. J@thejskinner.com. There's my phone number, 317-922-7526. And you know my website, THEJAY Skinner.com. And people can get a hold of me, and we're all very available, and we want to help you be more successful. Tim, as we want, I want to bring this one banner back up again because it's so valuable, and I want people to remember widget, what it stands for.
Mm-hmm.
Wonder, invention, discernment, galvanizing, enablement, and tenacity. And you lock that in, and good things are going to happen with your project. We got some additional comments here. I say, Greg, good show. Hey, you helped make it that way. Extreme Converting. This is Taner Kurbuz. He's from Turkey. I'm glad you enjoyed the show. Glad for joining us all the way from beautiful Turkey. And this show goes all around the world. So I'm glad that you're there. And let's see, Scott's got a comment. Great job, guys. I guess you can tell we're winding down, huh? This is great. Scott, thank you for coming. Scott's a key player. Talk about a utility player that can do everything. I know you know him and appreciate him well. And I love the work that Scott's been doing for us. And I'm glad he supports things like this. And I did encourage everybody on the team. I said, here's a chance to get some insight into what's happening and what's coming. And of course, when you say Tim Ahlenius, everybody smiles, and they like you, Tim. They do like you.
That's good. I appreciate hearing that.
So, Tim, I guess I have a question in just to kind of wrap things up here before we go back to the green room. Have you got some final things you'd just like to talk to the people about and share them?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the biggest thing is there's a lot that you can unpack with utilizing the assessment from Pat Lencioni and the 6 types of working genius. To me, I've been using it for 2 years, using it within different teams and starting to roll it out even more inside of our company. But even personally, it's been helpful just to understand kind of where my best effort can be applied and where I might need to make sure that I'm getting support in other areas. So please, and again, check out the book. It's widely available. The website, the podcast is awesome. I just listened to the latest episode this morning on my drive in, and they talked about different aspects of, the worry and anxiety behind some of the frustrations that people have. And, it's incredible the amount of content that has been put together by the Working Genius team and Pat Lencioni and the people at the Table Group, where it really has been a game changer in my career of understanding how to work within teams, how to work myself with those teams, and really just helping make a positive impact happen for trying to get everyone to be happy about the work that they do and excited to come in, and they're not stuck in a frustration constantly. So if you are in a frustrated position in your career or in a specific project, maybe you're working in a frustration too long or a competency too long, and that can be frustrating as well. We need to find the right way to have you have that energy that you get when you work in your genius. Now, it's not all the time, and Greg made that comment, right, about getting tasks done as just ET, right? I love my Reese's Pieces, but even if you give me those all day long, I can't get tenacity to become a genius for myself. I'll take them all day long, but overall, when you find the right mix for a team, it's incredible the level of satisfaction that I have seen come from both completing projects, but also just working together as colleagues.
Thank you, Tim. That's why we had you here today. And this has been enlightening, and I know everybody's going to jump on it. So if you don't mind, jump back in the green room. If you got a minute to hang around, please do. And don't eat all the fruit. And my wife made some fudge. I know you're going to love it.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Jay, thank you so much for having me. This was a blast.
Thank you for coming. Talk to you later.
Yep.
And you've been on the Buyers and Sellers Show. I'm Jay Skinner, and we're here every Friday morning at 10:35 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Can you believe it? And we'll see you next week, same time, same channel. Well, I'm going to Kansas City. Kansas City, here I come. Yeah. Well, I'm going to Kansas City. Kansas City, here I come. Got some crazy little women there. I'm gonna get me one. See you next week. Thanks for coming. Bye now.